Okay guys, I'm back. It is day 2 and we're going to continue with our assignments. So yesterday we did about 4 things. We shopped, we grabbed our fabric, all of our notions and a correct pattern. We pre-washed the fabric, we cut out each pattern piece that we needed for the correct size that we are. We correctly placed the pattern pieces onto the fabric and we properly cut them out. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be reading the instructions on how to piece the garment together. So these are our instructions. You should always have 2 of these. One's the instructions and one's how to place the fabric, place the pattern pieces onto the fabric. So we're making dress A. So we're going to make sure we open up both and find the first instruction. So sewing directions, dress A1. So it just starts, sometimes it'll start on the back of the page where you learn how to put the pieces down. And you want to start where it says the dress or thing that you're doing. I am doing dress A and we're going to start at step 1. So we're going to look in the instructions now and figure out what we have to do. So it might be on the back page of where it told us how to lay out our pattern pieces. But keep in mind, we're still doing dress A. We're going to go to the very first instructions. So right here it tells you which instructions these are for. So we're doing dress A, so it already lists that this is the right instructions. We're going to start at step 1. We're going to stay stitch the neckline or the neck edge of front and sleeves 1 or 7 with the right sides together and raw edges even. Pin center front seam of front and sleeve matching notches. Then we're going to stitch. So if you're ever confused on what it's asking you to do, always make sure you look at the picture and reread it until you understand exactly what you need to be doing. So we're cutting out dress A, and we didn't cut out a piece 7. We cut out pieces 1 through 6. So we will only be needing piece 1 for this, and we're going to be stay stitching piece 1 just like that, right around the neckline. We have our piece 1 here, and we're going to be stay stitching around the neckline. So now that we got our piece, we're going to grab our instructions and our pattern piece, and we're going to go to the sewing machine. Right now you're looking at the neckline, and we're going to stay stitch it, but we don't want to stay stitch them together or else there'd be no way for us to put our head through the garment. So we're going to separate the pieces and we're going to stay stitch. So we're going to go from here around here. What you're looking at is piece 1. We cut out 2 pieces of piece 1, so we need to separate the pieces and stay stitch each one individually. Once we are done with that, then we are going to put both cuts of piece 1 right sides together in order to do that last stitch. Remember, once you end a seam or a stitch or whatever, make sure you cut off the excess strings. And you want to stay stitched so the fabric keeps its shape. So now that I've gotten piece 1 stay stitch, I'm going to move this fabric to the side and grab my instructions. Remember, we separated the pieces to stay stitch. Now we're going to put the pieces back together, just this first half, and we're going to go sew down the 2 pieces that are stuck together. I turned the lamp off because it looked disgusting in the camera, and open up the blinds because it's better to use sunlight anyway rather than wasting electricity. So right now I've got the blinds open and I went ahead and pinned that down. I'm about to sew it now. I'm going to be sewing 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and we're doing, ignore 1/2 of this dress. Picture just this half right here, and we're sewing all the way down. We've already matched the notches to make sure it's even, so that's what we're doing now. make sure you back stitch. Keep in mind, home sewing machines don't run as fast. I could put the speed up really fast, but I want to make sure I'm taking my time and focusing on what I'm doing here. In industrial sewing machines, I think they have 1,000 more stitches per inch compared to a home machine from what I read the last time. So, right now I've sewn this. I'm still like a slight beginner at sewing. I haven't taken any college course classes yet. I do have some basis knowledge, and every time I sew, I try to let my grandma know what I'm doing. So she comes over and critiques me. She critiques me every 2 seconds. You pinned it wrong. Okay. You sewed it wrong. You need to seam rip it. And I got to redo everything like 1,000 times. So that's what I'm about to do right now. Is I'm about to take it to her so she can see what I did. Step 2 says stay stitch, neck edge, and back and sleeve. Back and sleeve is what the piece is called. We don't actually have to stitch the sleeve, but we do have to stay stitch the neck. We do have to stay stitch the neck line here. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do now. Now that we've got our piece number 2, the back and sleeve, right here it says it, back and sleeve piece number 2. We're going to go ahead and take the pins out of here, and we're going to fold up our pattern piece and place it back in the envelope, and we're going to do our stay stitching that the instructions require us to do. Take these pins out. We're moving on to step 3. So it says in step 3, find loop 4, which is right here. This is our pattern piece. And it says fold loop 4 in half lengthwise, so meaning this way, with the right sides together. Stitch a scant 1/4 inch 6 millimeter from fold edge, stretching loop while stitching with a needle along a strong thread to one end of loop. And it has some instructions to show. The most frustrating thing in the world to do are these loops. So I already turned the loop around. I sewed it, I turned it around, and now I had to fold it like that. It close enough, like how that will be. So I've read the instructions for 4, 5, and 6. I just basted this loop onto here. I followed the picture. Followed the picture to match what that is. So I folded this some, but not all the way, if you can see that, just to attach that. And now I'm going to be putting my right sides together of this piece that I cut out, so I could start right here and go down. And how did I know to put this here? If you remember before, we had our tailor tacks. The little yellow dot is where I matched it. Now there should be another tailor tacks to show me. There should be another tailor tacks here to show me that I need to sew a little bit above the notch. So if I'm looking right here. So it's a little bit above the notch. This is where I'm going to start sewing all the way down after I put these 2 pieces together, right sides together. So we are moving on to the next step here. We are moving on to step 6 with right sides together and raw edges even, pin center back seam of back and sleeve sections. You can read all of that, but I already read it And this is what we got to do so far. So if I place this here, we've already put the button loop here. And we have that opening, and there was my tailor tacks to show me right here. This is where we're starting, just slightly above the notch. We're going to be sewing all the way down, but there's going to be like a keyhole in the back where it'll be able to unbutton to make it easier to take on and off. So this, you don't really need a zipper, so it's a little bit simpler to construct. Now if you're sewing this and you want it to be a more professional look when you put on the garment or like turn it inside out, you would normally like serge this, so all this rough edge will get cut off and encased, and it'll look more clean. If you don't have that option, you can also use some pinking shears. But if you also don't have that option, then you're just stuck with this. Right now we are on step number 7. We're going to be doing a narrow hem squaring stitch. So this is a picture it shows us. We've already sewn that down, which is this, which is what you see here. That little part right here is what is this. So that's what we've sewn so far. And this squaring stitch, narrow hem, all that means, so I folded this in, so it's not out like how this is. It's folded in to make it more narrow. And then when you get down here, a squaring stitch means you get over here and you just go straight across like that. See how it's square like? So that's what I'm going to go ahead and sew now. So I have just sewn the back here. I flipped it over and I messed up just a little bit there, but you can't really tell, but I think I did a really good job with this narrow hem squaring stitch. I think I did it really good here. And then that's the loop that's going to attach to whatever button I put up here. And everything else is already sewn. So we're going to move on to the next step. So it says, with right sides together and raw edges even, pin front and sleeve to back and sleeve at shoulder seam stitch. So now we're going to be attaching both pieces, so the front and the back pieces. So this is my back piece that I just sewn, and this is the very first piece we worked with already, and we sewn up together. So now we're going to put these together based on what the instructions say, and we're going to do that right sides together. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be moving on to the next step, step 9. It says, cut a piece of the single fold bias tape the length of the neck edge plus 3/4 inch. Open out one edge of tape with the right sides together. Pin tape and neck edge have increased 3/8 inch from raw edge. Ends of tape will extend 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter beyond finished neck edge. Stitch in a 3/8 inch seam. Trim seam clip curves. So we're going to take out this, and we're going to go ahead and cut the piece that we just ready to take out. So now we have to cut a piece of this, the length of the neck edge. So we need to grab our garment and measure it, this single fold bias tape, around the neck edge.
Okay, see what I'm doing? I'm pinning this along the neckline that you should have cut straight, which you didn't. I need the scissor. Then when it's all sewn, you're going to flip it over. Do you see?
And do I have to sew it again?
You'll have to sew down that other edge, yeah.
I had never used bias tape before, so I called my grandma in for a little bit of assistance. I started where she left off and continued to put the bias tape around the neckline and then leave a little, about half an inch off once I was finished pinning it around the neckline.
Okay. I guess we can put that away.
So now we're going to be stitching right here where that's folded. So it was folded here, and we unfolded it. So that's a 3/8 inch. And we're going to be sewing along that fold line where we put our pins. And when we read the instructions, it wants us to offset about 3/8 of an inch. So that's why that's like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and just sew that down there. So I just finished sewing this here, the neckline, the bias tape on the neckline. So here we've got that line going all the way down, and now we're about to figure out what we're going to be needing to do next. Step 10 says fold under ends of tape, turn tape to inside, press, pin, base close to inner edge of tape on outside top stitch as basted. Why do you say pin it this way?
Because I think it's easier for you to see rather than pinning it the other way. The pins will be in the way. For me, you may find it different.
Alright, I'll let you check these first ones I did. How's that look?
And this one too. You got it too close to the edge.
Okay. Too close to the edge. So we don't want it like that. I want to bring it down a little bit. Is that better? Or still too close?
This is still too close here because you got the seam there. You got to bring it down.
Once you get towards the end here, you're going to want to take it and fold it in to enclose the edge, and then flip it over. So you don't want this sticking out. And then you're going to pin it. And if you flip it over, you don't want to see any of the bias tape. And this is the right side of the fabric, and this is the wrong side of the fabric. And we're going to sew right there. I have just sewn this. So this is the back of it, of the neckline. And if you turn it around, like this, that's how it looks. Looks good. Next step, we're going to be doing the pockets. Step 11. Apply pockets to side edges of front and back as follows, with right sides together, pin pocket 3 to front and sleeve and back and sleeve, matching large dots having raw edges even, stitch in 3/8 inch, 1 centimeter seam. These are our pockets. We have our tailor tack still marked on them. It's been a few days. And we also have our notch cut out here, our double notch. And right now they're currently right sides together. So based on the picture here, we're going to be putting right sides together. And we're going to be matching them, the tailor tacks and the notches. So right here, we have already matched our tailor taxes and our notches here. If you can see that. And we're going to just sew from here, from this tailor tacks down to here, just like in the picture.
Not to the end of the pocket, just to the tailor tack to tailor tack.
Just like that. So this is the dress right here. And we put the 2 pieces of the pocket here. So this is the one pocket, like how it's shown here. And when we sew that together, we'll turn it inside out. But right now, it's turned this way. Now we have to do the other side because it doesn't have a pocket. So for the next step, once you've sewn it down, the right sides together, you're going to flip it over and you're going to match them as close as you can to the edge. You're going to sew it down like that just to make it flat. You're going to do that for all of them. So right now, this is the back view of the dress. I decided to put it on a hanger so you can see it a little more clearly. And you know it's the back view because we did this. If you remember, we made this. And we pivoted to make that stitch and it loops here. The keyhole for the back. So if you look down, we're working on the pockets. So we've already stitched it right sides together with the pockets. And then we turned it around and we stitched the whole pocket from the start of the pocket all the way down as close to the edge as we could. And so now that's on there, we are going to sew the rest of them like that before we actually turn the dress inside out and combine the pockets sort of like this. So right now we have our blue dress right here, and it's turned right sides together, meaning it's turned inside out. And we can also tell because our bias tape is right here on the outside. So what we're going to be doing now is we are going to be sewing the sleeves and the whole piece together. So we're going to be sewing down here all the way around the armhole, all the way down. When we get to the pockets, we're going to sew all the way around, attaching both pockets with a 5/8 inch seam allowance, and then getting here and continuing to go all the way down the dress. And we're going to do that on both sides. And then once that's done, we'll be able to flip it inside out and then start working on the belt. And now we're on part 4, which is the belt. So we're going to grab our pieces that we need for the belt. So right here we have our piece 5 and we have our piece 6. So we're going to read and see what we got to do. Just took the pattern piece off of piece 5. I'm folding it up now to put back into my envelope. Just so I make sure I have all the pieces I need, so when I make another pattern or the same pattern again, I will have all my pieces I need. So I'm still going to go ahead and take the pins out of here. So I'm going to be matching, this is piece 5 here, that I've already attached to this piece 6. And I'm going to be doing it again here. The flat edge here, matching the notches, piecing it, evening them out. And then I'm going to sew down here. So I have just that, and I'm going to cut off my little raw edges. So here we've got the belt. It is extremely long, like really long. Now I cut in, or I sewed both pieces. So now we're going to read the next part of the instructions. Right sides together and raw edges even. Pin belt to belt facing. Stitch leaving an opening and one long edge for turning trim seam. For turning. Trim seam, clip corners. So we're gonna be turning the belt inside out after we sew it all together. And this is like, how many yards is this? About 2.5 yards. So right here on the instructions, it shows me right here in the piece of middle 5 is where I'll be leaving the opening. So I'm going to put 2 ball pins here with a color ball that's different from my other pins, just so when I get to that point when I'm sewing, I know to not keep sewing, but to back stitch and then start over here. And I'm going to match up these, and I'm going to leave these pieces open, how it's shown here, and while I match them. So that's what I'm doing. I just put a quilting pin here just so I could show y'all that this is piece 5 that I opened up. And I'm just going to go ahead and pin this 2.5 yard thing and sew it up and show y'all when it's done. So right now I'm sitting on the floor and I'm hand stitching the belt. So I had to turn the belt inside out, and I had to leave the opening. So I left the opening so I could turn the belt inside out. And now I've got to figure out why there's a knot in the middle of this, but now I gotta hand stitch this opening right here that's open. If you can see that, I gotta stitch it closed. So right now we are on step 15. It says on outside stitch a 1/2 inch across side seam at pocket opening edges. So they just want us to sew like horizontally like that. But everything's laying flat, so I'm not really going to worry about that part too much, because I'm trying to get this dress done. And I mean, it's not that hard to do, but everything's going good so far. So we're just going to go ahead and move on to the next step, which is a sleeve, because we need to hurry up and get these sleeves done. It's been some days that I've been working on this dress, and I should be done by now. So on inside, press up hem allowance along the fold line. Turn pressed edge up again, having raw edge meet at the crease. Press. Stitch a 1/4 inch 6 millimeters from lower pressed edge. And then we're going to turn inner edge of sleeve down, creating a tuck above stitch on outside and a clean finish on inside. Press. So let's go ahead and work on that now. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to fold this over 1-2 times, and then pin it around using a seam gauge just to make sure that it's even all around. And we did about 1 inch. So we're going to sew right here on the bottom for this one.
Right.
Whenever you start sewing a sleeve or a hem, start right here at, you see right here where it says seam? That's where you want to start. Don't start in the middle. It would be best to start somewhere right around here. So the sleeve is inside out right now, and we sewed on this edge, the bottom. Now we're going to turn the sleeve the right way, and when you turn it, it should look like it has a little narrow hem. And then you're going to turn it up once, and then it should look like a little cuff. And then what you're going to do is around the side seam or whatever, you're going to just make a small little stitch so it doesn't unravel, so it doesn't come out. So that's how it looks. So right here I put the little belt on and it looks better, but that still doesn't account for the fact that the cuffs they look tinier than what you see here. I mean, but there's only so much I can do, and I hate seam ripping and having to do it over and over again, but I'm most likely going to have to do this one again.
Feels like it.
Right now we're going to work on step 20. We're going to be hemming it up. When I tried on the dress, it fit perfectly right here, like it should, so I'm going to just do like a 1/2 inch seam hem. In order to do the hem, you want to turn the garment inside out, which I've already done. And then you're going to be flipping it in and again to make the hem. And just pin it all around. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Dee's Fashion House for more fabulous fashion related videos.